I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't suspicious. If anything, I was just another idiot who trusted his wife. But that night, something gnawed at me, like a whisper in the back of my skull telling me to check. We were sitting in the living room, her on the couch, feet tucked under a blanket, scrolling her phone. Me in the recliner, sipping a beer, half watching some rerun on TV. It was a normal night, a quiet night, but something wasn't right. I glanced over, not even thinking, and caught the smallest thing, a flicker in her eyes. The way her fingers moved just a bit too fast, locking her screen the second she noticed me looking. Something cracked in my chest, real subtle, real quiet. I stood up, stretched. "Can I see your phone?" Her whole body stiffened. Not much, but enough. "What? Why?" she asked, pretending to be confused, like I had just asked her if the moon was made of cheese. "Just want to see something," I said, keeping my voice even. She held it tighter, her knuckles going white. "That's my personal stuff, Ryan." And there it was. That was all the confirmation I needed. For months, I had no idea. For months, she must have been texting him, calling him, maybe even meeting him while I was working my ass off. And for months, I had been a goddamn joke. I reached forward and yanked it out of her hands. "Ryan," she gasped, trying to snatch it back. But I was faster, and the moment I saw the name Jason in her messages, my stomach turned to ice. I opened the texts. I scrolled, and I felt my heart beat harder and harder until it felt like it was trying to break my ribs. "I miss you. I wish I was in your bed right now instead of his. God, last night was incredible. I can still feel you on me." The beer bottle in my other hand nearly shattered in my grip. She was saying something, her voice panicked and pleading, but I didn't hear a word. My whole world had turned into those messages, each one cutting into me like a jagged knife. I scrolled faster. There were hundreds of messages. Photos. Videos. One of them in a hotel mirror. Her wearing my necklace, but nothing else. My stomach churned. Then, without thinking, I walked to the fireplace, raised her phone high above my head, and smashed it against the brick. It exploded into pieces, the screen shattering, plastic bits scattering across the floor. She shrieked like I had hit her. "That," I said, my voice low and shaking with rage, "is our relationship now. Broken. Smashed to fucking pieces." Tears streamed down her face, and she stumbled forward, reaching for the wreckage. "Ryan, please." I grabbed her wrist before she could touch it. "No," I snapped. "No more. You don't get to ruin us, and then beg for a do-over." She sobbed. I need my phone, Ryan. Please. I'll stop. I swear, I'll stop talking to him." I let out a hollow laugh. "Oh, now you'll stop. Now that you got caught." She was shaking. "I swear. I'll block him. I'll do anything." I stared at her, feeling nothing but disgust. "You already did enough." She clung to my arm, her nails digging in. "Please, just let me get a new phone. I need to talk to my mom. I pulled away like she was poison. "No. No more chances. No more talking. No more excuses." I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. My fists clenched so tight they ached. I had been good to her. Faithful. Never once looked at another woman. And this is what I got. She fell to her knees, her hands trembling as she reached for the broken pieces of her phone like they were the last pieces of her dignity. "Ryan, please, just let me explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you've been screwing around behind my back. That you've been lying to my face every goddamn day." Her lip quivered. She was crying so hard she could barely speak, her body shaking as she rocked slightly on the floor. For the first time since I had met her, I saw something break in her. Like she finally understood that this wasn't going to end with me forgiving her. This was going to end with her losing me. And maybe, just maybe, that's what she was really crying about. She sat there on the floor, broken phone in her hands, shaking like a leaf in the wind. "Ryan," she whimpered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, please just talk to me." Talk to her? About what? How she had spent months sneaking around, texting another man while I was busting my ass to give her a good life. How she had the nerve to beg for another phone like her real problem was being disconnected from the world, and not that she had just destroyed our marriage. I turned away. I needed to breathe before I did something I'd regret. My fists were still clenched, so tight my nails dug into my palms. I didn't even realize I was shaking until I grabbed the back of the couch for balance. My body was reacting before my brain could catch up. Rage, betrayal, disgust, heartbreak, all slamming into me at once. She crawled toward me on her knees, reaching for my leg. I jerked away like her touch burned. "Don't," I snapped. "Please just listen," she begged, tears rolling down her face. It wasn't what you think." I whipped around so fast she flinched. "Not what I think," I echoed, voice like gravel. "Do you think I'm an idiot? I saw everything, Emily. Everything. The I miss yous. The hotel pictures. The I wish I was in your bed instead of his." My voice cracked on the last part, and I hated myself for it. Hated that I still felt pain when I should have only felt rage. She sobbed harder, gripping the couch cushion like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I know I messed up, but Ryan, I scoffed, turning away. "You don't get to say my name like that. Not anymore." Silence. Just the sound of her ragged breathing, her quiet sobs. I ran a hand through my hair, my chest rising and falling in rapid breaths. I needed to leave. Get out before I said something that couldn't be taken back. I headed for the door. "Where are you going?" she gasped, scrambling to her feet. I didn't answer. She grabbed my arm. "Ryan, please don't leave." I yanked my arm free so hard, she stumbled backward. "Do not touch me." My voice was lower now, controlled, but dripping with venom. She let out a tiny gasp, as if she was realizing, for the first time, that I wasn't playing around. She wasn't talking her way out of this. I grabbed my keys from the counter. My truck was parked outside, and at that moment, I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away from her, from this house, from the suffocating weight of her betrayal. Emily followed me to the door, standing in the doorway, shaking like a ghost in the night. "Ryan," she choked out. "Please. I love you." I froze. The words hit like a bullet straight to the heart. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see her out of the corner of my eye. "You loved me," I corrected, voice hollow. "But not enough." Then I walked out, slamming the door behind me. I drove without thinking. The road blurred, street lights streaking past like ghosts, my mind racing so fast I couldn't focus on one thought long enough to process it. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to my face? Did she ever feel guilty? Or was she just sorry because she got caught? I pulled into the first empty parking lot I found, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. My breath came out ragged, my body still shaking with adrenaline. I punched the steering wheel. Hard. Pain shot up my arm, but it wasn't enough. Nothing could hurt as much as what she did. I let out a strangled laugh, one that sounded more like a sob. I loved her. I built a life with her. I thought she was my forever. And now she was just another person who lied to me. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over my contacts. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to tell someone what just happened before it ate me alive. But who? My best friend, Mark. He'd always been protective of me. The second he heard this, he'd be at my house with a baseball bat. My mom. No way. She always liked Emily, and I couldn't handle the disappointment in her voice. My sister, Lisa. Maybe. She always saw through Emily's bullshit. Maybe she already knew. Before I could decide, my phone lit up with a new text. "Emily, I know you're hurting. I know you hate me. But please, Ryan, come home. Let's talk. Let's fix this." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Fix this? How the hell do you fix something like this? I typed out a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. I could picture her sitting in our house. Probably in our bedroom. Probably crying into my pillow. Probably rehearsing some excuse. Some sob story to make herself look like the victim. I clenched my jaw. She wasn't the victim. I was. And for the first time, I wasn't going to let her make me feel like I was the one who had to fix this. I turned off my phone, tossed it onto the passenger seat, and leaned back against the headrest, staring up at the roof of my truck. I wasn't going home tonight. She could sit there and cry all she wanted. Let her feel just a fraction of what I felt. Let her sit in the mess she made, because I was done cleaning up after her mistakes. She was still kneeling on the floor, fingers shaking as she tried to piece together the broken remains of her phone. Like she could somehow fix it. Like she could fix this. I just stood there, staring at her. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built my life with, reduced to this pathetic, sobbing mess. And all I felt was rage. Cold, quiet, steady rage. She looked up at me, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Ryan, please." I turned and walked away. "Where are you going?" she choked out. I grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door. Out. She scrambled to her feet, nearly slipping. "Wait! Just wait!" I ignored her. "Ryan!" she shrieked, running after me, grabbing at my sleeve like a desperate child. "You can't just leave. We have to talk about this. I'll do anything, just please." I ripped my arm away, so hard, she stumbled back. "There's nothing left to talk about." "Yes, there is," she sobbed. "I messed up, I know I did. But we can fix this. I can fix this." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Oh yeah? And how exactly do you plan to do that, huh? How do you fix fucking another man behind my back for months?" She flinched. "I didn't." "Don't." My voice was sharp, cold. "Don't even try to lie to me right now." Her lips trembled. She looked so small in that moment, so fragile. The same woman who used to be my everything, who used to be my home. Now, all I saw was a stranger. "I love you," she whispered. I almost laughed again. "No, you don't." "Yes, I do." She took a shaky step forward. "I love you, Ryan. I never stopped loving you. It was just what?" I snapped, stepping closer. "Just a mistake. Just a phase. Just something I was never supposed to find out." Her breath hitched. She looked at the floor, like she couldn't even bear to look me in the eye anymore. I shook my head. "You don't love me. You love the comfort, the safety. You love knowing that no matter what, I'd always been there for you. And you thought I'd always be there. But guess what?" I took another step toward her, lowering my voice. "I'm done." She let out a broken sob, covering her mouth with both hands. "Please don't say that," she whispered. "Please, Ryan. I can't lose you." I stared at her, my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. "You already lost me." And for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not just guilt, not just regret. Fear, because she knew I meant it. She collapsed onto the couch, her whole body shaking. "What do I do?" she whimpered. "What do I do?" I ran a hand through my hair, trying to breathe, trying to think. Everything inside me was screaming to get out of that house. But I couldn't just walk away. Not yet. "I don't know," I muttered. "Figure it out." "I will," she gasped. "I'll prove it to you. I'll show you that I can change, that I can be better. Just please, Ryan. Just tell me what to do." I stared at her, and for a split second, I almost wanted to believe her. Almost. But then I remembered the messages, the videos, the way she looked at her phone that night, smiling to herself while I sat just a few feet away, completely oblivious. I took a slow breath. "You want to prove it to me?" She nodded frantically. "Then don't get a new phone." She blinked, confused. "What?" I folded my arms. "No phone. No social media. No contact with anyone except me. If you really want to prove you're serious about fixing this, then cut off every distraction, every temptation. Show me you don't need it." Her face went pale. "Ryan, I need a phone." I smirked. "For what? To call him?" She gasped like I had hit her. "No. For work. For my family. For bullshit." I interrupted. "You don't need a phone. You want one. And I'm telling you right now, if you even think about getting a new one, we're done." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "You say you'll do anything?" I continued. "Then prove it." She swallowed hard, eyes darting toward the shattered pieces on the floor. "Okay," she finally whispered. "I won't get a new one." I nodded. "Good. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I should have felt better. I should have felt like I had won something. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew the truth. She was going to get a new phone. She was going to text him again. She was going to keep lying, keep sneaking, keep doing whatever the hell she wanted to do, because that's just who she was. And when she did, I'd finally walk away for good. But until then, I was going to watch her crumble. The first few days after I smashed her phone were quiet. Too quiet. I expected her to break immediately, to run out and buy a new phone, to text him from another device, to find some way to keep sneaking around like she had been for months. But she didn't. At least, not that I could see. She spent most of her time curled up on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. Her hands twitched sometimes, like she was about to reach for something that wasn't there. Muscle memory, I guessed. Good. Let her feel that emptiness. Let her feel what it's like to lose something she took for granted. She was quiet in other ways, too. No arguments. No pleading. Just a few sniffles at night when she thought I was asleep. I wasn't. I heard every single one. She was waiting. Waiting for me to forgive her. Waiting for me to change my mind. She didn't get it yet. I wasn't changing my mind. On the fourth day, she broke. I had just come back from the store, a six-pack in one hand, a bag of groceries in the other. The second I walked in, I knew something was off. She was standing in the kitchen, her back to me, her whole body stiff, and in her hands, a brand new phone. I exhaled slowly, setting the bags down on the counter. She flinched, turned around fast, hiding the phone behind her back like some guilty teenager caught sneaking out. Ryan, I held up a hand. Don't. She swallowed hard, her eyes already glassy with tears. I needed it for work. I had to get it. I nodded slowly. Work, huh? Yes, she whispered. That's all. I swear. I sighed. Let me see it. Her fingers clutched it tighter. Why? I tilted my head. You really want me to answer that? Her lip trembled. She didn't move. I stepped closer. If there's nothing to hide, you won't mind letting me check, right? Silence. A long, painful silence. Then ping. A notification. Her whole face crumbled. I didn't even have to see the screen. I already knew. My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice calm. Cold. Give it to me. She hesitated, just for a second, but that second was all I needed. I ripped it from her hands. Ryan, please. I turned the screen toward her. Jason Redheart, I miss you. Are you okay? Her breath hitched. I didn't. I laughed. Actually laughed. Didn't what? Didn't mean to. Didn't expect me to find out again. She shook her head, tears spilling down her face. I wasn't going to reply. Oh, so now you have morals? I scoffed. Now that you've been caught, again, you suddenly care about doing the right thing. She was sobbing now. I panicked. I thought if I ignored him, he'd stop. I stared at her, at the pathetic mess of a woman standing in front of me, falling apart over the very thing she swore she'd never do again. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was just done. I took her phone and, without a single word, snapped it in half. Her scream was pure agony. Ryan, no. I tossed the broken pieces onto the counter and met her eyes. You're pathetic. She gasped, like the word had physically hurt her. Please, she choked out. Just please don't leave me. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly. Why the fuck should I stay? Because I love you, she cried. Because I made a mistake and I can fix this. I just need one more chance. I shook my head. You had one more chance. You had it 4 days ago, and you threw it away. She took a step toward me, reaching out with shaking hands. I can fix it. I'll block him. I swear. I stepped back. I don't believe you. She froze. I let the words sink in, let her feel them, because the truth was I didn't. I would never believe her again. I can't lose you, she whispered, so quiet I almost didn't hear it. I tilted my head. Why? She blinked, caught off guard. WH. I took a step closer, watching her carefully. Why don't you want to lose me? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. Is it because you love me? I asked. Or is it because you're afraid of being alone? Her bottom lip quivered. She didn't answer. That told me everything I needed to know. I took another step back, my chest tightening with something I couldn't even name anymore. Disgust? Disappointment? Some combination of both. You don't love me, I said quietly. You just love what I give you. Stability. Comfort. Someone who's always been there. No matter how much you shit on them. She sucked in a shaky breath. That's not true. Then tell me, I challenged. If Jason wanted to be with you, really be with you, would you have left me? Silence. She didn't answer. She couldn't. I felt my stomach drop, even though I already knew the truth. That was it. That was my breaking point. I exhaled. I'll pack my things. She let out a broken sob. No. Please, Ryan. Don't. I turned and started walking toward the bedroom. She grabbed my arm, yanking me back, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Please. I shook her off, my voice like steel. Don't touch me. She flinched. And then, for the first time since this nightmare started, she didn't chase me. I locked the bedroom door behind me. Not that it mattered. She didn't try to follow me this time. The silence was suffocating. I stood there for a second, breathing heavy, my hands still shaking from what just happened. The broken phone was still out there on the kitchen counter, and so was she. Probably still crying. Probably still trying to figure out what the hell to say to make me stay. Too bad for her. There was nothing left to say. I grabbed my duffel bag from the closet and yanked it open, moving fast, shoving my clothes inside without bothering to fold them. Every movement was sharp, mechanical. I didn't want to think, didn't want to feel, just wanted to be out of here. I could hear her moving in the other room, pacing. Quiet, sniffled sobs. Every few seconds, she would stop near the bedroom door, like she wanted to knock. But she didn't. Maybe she finally realized words weren't enough. Or maybe she was just too much of a coward to face me now. I shoved the last of my clothes into the bag, then grabbed the small box from the nightstand, the one I had kept hidden for months. It was supposed to be hers. It was supposed to be a ring. I stared at it for a long moment. I should throw it. Smash it. Hell, maybe even pawn it. But instead, I just slipped it into my pocket. Maybe because I wasn't ready to let go of the man I used to be. The man who once thought she was the love of his life. Maybe because, deep down, I wanted to keep it as a reminder. A reminder of how fucking stupid I had been. I zipped up the bag and slung it over my shoulder. Took one last look around the bedroom. The bed we had shared. The dresser filled with the clothes she used to steal from me. Smiling like it was some cute, harmless thing. All of it was tainted now. Every inch of this place felt wrong. I turned off the light and walked out. She was standing in the hallway when I stepped out, eyes red and swollen, arms wrapped tightly around herself like she was physically trying to keep herself together. When she saw the bag, her whole body stiffened. "You're really leaving?" she whispered. I didn't answer, just walked past her. She followed, her bare feet padding softly against the hardwood floor. "Where are you going?" "Doesn't matter," I muttered. "Ryan, please," she begged. "Just talk to me. Just tell me what I can do." I stopped near the front door and let out a slow breath. Then I turned to look at her. She was a wreck. Her hair was messy. Her face was streaked with dried tears, and she looked so goddamn small standing there in the dim light. And for the first time, I felt something close to pity, but not enough to stay. "You can do one thing," I said quietly. Her breath caught. "Anything." I met her eyes. "Let me go." Her lips parted like she wanted to protest, but she didn't. Maybe because she finally saw it, really saw it. I was done. She let out a choked sob, covering her mouth with both hands. I turned back to the door, gripping the handle, pulled it open, stepped outside, and then, wait. I froze. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you still love me?" I felt my whole body tense. My grip on the bag strap tightened. I wanted to say no. Wanted to lie. Wanted to pretend she hadn't already carved herself so deep into my bones that it would take years to scrape her out. But I wasn't going to give her that comfort, so I didn't answer. Instead, I walked out and shut the door behind me. The night air was cold, crisp. It smelled different out here, cleaner, fresher. Like freedom. I stood on the porch for a second, breathing it in, staring up at the sky. The stars were out, bright and endless. I should have felt better. Lighter. Something. But all I felt was empty. My feet started moving before I even made the choice. Down the steps, across the yard, toward my truck parked in the driveway. My hands fumbled with the keys, the metal jingling too loudly in the quiet night. I climbed inside and slammed the door shut. Just sat there for a second, gripping the wheel, staring at the house I had shared with her, the house that was no longer mine. The porch light was still on. I could see her shadow through the curtains, standing there, unmoving, watching me. My chest ached. I squeezed my eyes shut, exhaled. Then I turned the key. The engine roared to life, breaking the silence. I threw it into reverse, backed out of the driveway. Never looked back. I drove for hours. Didn't know where I was going. Didn't care. Just needed to put as much distance between me and that house as possible. Somewhere around midnight, I pulled into a cheap motel parking lot, killed the engine, sat there for a moment, staring at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked like hell. I got out, grabbed my bag, checked in with a guy who didn't ask questions. The room was small, shitty. A flickering light, stained carpet, an old TV in the corner. Didn't matter. I dropped my bag on the floor and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. It hit me then. I had no plan, no idea what came next. For the first time in years, I was completely alone, and I didn't even know who the hell I was anymore. I woke up to silence. Not the comfortable kind, not the peaceful kind, the hollow, empty kind, the kind that makes you realize just how alone you really are. The motel room smelled like dust and cheap detergent. The ceiling had a crack running through it, the old wallpaper curling at the edges. A small bedside lamp cast an orange glow across the room, making the whole place feel even emptier. For a long time, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. I had really done it. I had really left. The weight of it sat heavy on my chest, pressing down like a slow, steady ache. I turned my head, half expecting my phone to light up with a message from her. But of course, there was nothing. I had blocked her before I even left the driveway. I didn't want to hear her apologies. Didn't want to hear her beg. Didn't want to hear whatever excuse she had left. It was over. And now, I had to figure out what the hell came next. The first few days felt like walking through fog. I kept moving, kept driving, staying in different motels, different towns. I told myself I was looking for something. Maybe a fresh start, maybe just space. But the truth was, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. All I knew was that going back wasn't an option. The thought of that house, of sleeping in the same bed where she had been whispering to him at night, made me sick. I spent a lot of time in bars. Not drinking to forget, just drinking to feel something again. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just numb. I'd sit there, nursing a beer, listening to the hum of strangers' conversations, wondering how many of them had been betrayed like I had. How many had sat in a chair just like this, scrolling through messages they weren't meant to see, realizing the person they loved had been lying to them all along. It was a lonely fucking thought. One night, in some no-name town, I found myself talking to an old guy at the bar. He looked like he had seen his fair share of shit. Wrinkled hands, tired eyes, a whiskey glass that never seemed to empty. Women, huh? He muttered after a while, swirling the ice in his drink. Can't live with them. Can't trust them either. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, he studied me for a second, like he already knew why I was there. She cheat. I didn't answer. Just took another sip of my beer. That's a yes, he said, shaking his head. Let me guess. Told you she loved you. Swore it was a mistake. Begged you to stay. My jaw clenched. Thought so. He downed the rest of his drink and set the glass down with a sigh. You want to know the truth, kid? They never regret doing it. They just regret getting caught. I stared at him, the words sinking in deep, because I knew, right then and there, he was right. About a week after I left, I got a text from an unknown number. I didn't recognize it, but I knew who it was. "I miss you." I stared at it for a long time, my fingers hovering over the screen. Then another one. "Please, Ryan, just talk to me." I exhaled sharply, tossing my phone onto the motel nightstand. I didn't need to read any more. She was still trying, still grasping at something that had already slipped through her fingers. And for the first time since this all started, I felt something close to peace. Not because I forgave her, not because I missed her, but because I realized something. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need to do anything. I was free. She wasn't. A few weeks passed. I found a new apartment in a different city. A small place, nothing special. But it was mine. No ghosts here. No bad memories in the walls. At first, the silence felt strange. I kept expecting her to walk through the door, humming a song under her breath, stealing my hoodie like she always did. But she never would, and that was okay. One night, I finally pulled out the small box from my bag. The ring. I had carried it with me this whole time, like some part of me still wasn't ready to let go. But I was now. I took a long drive, windows down, cool night air filling the car. Found a quiet spot near the river. Sat there for a while, just thinking. Then, without a second thought, I stood up and threw the ring as far as I could, watched it disappear beneath the dark water. And then I turned around and walked away. For the first time in a long time, I felt light, like I had finally left the weight of her behind, like I was finally free. A few days later, I got one last text from her. "I'm sorry." Then another. "I wish I could take it all back." And finally, "If you ever want to talk, I'll be here." I stared at them for a long time, feeling nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not regret, just nothing. And that's when I knew. I had won. I didn't reply. I just blocked the number. Then, without a second thought, I went outside, let the cold night air fill my lungs, and smiled. I was free.